This lady just don't get it. This lady just can't get it. Stephanie White, have your team's back for a change. When are you going to put your foot down and have the people in your locker rooms back? This dingbat of a coach is at the podium defending Dejanay Carrington versus Sophie Cunningham. What is going on, man? Stephanie White, this lady is an agent. This lady is there to sabotage Caitlin Clark.
Something went very wrong the moment Sophie Cunningham hit the floor, because what looked like another heated WNBA moment quickly turned into a controversy nobody saw coming. But here's the twist. The foul may not be the part that puts Carrington in the biggest trouble. What happened afterward is where the story gets seriously strange.
So Carrington is a dirty player, probably the dirtiest player in the league. And then she has the audacity to go online right after her ejection and claim that she got ejected because of racism. She definitely learned well from Angel Reese. Whenever something goes against you, just pull out that race card. I think she's jealous of my natural blonde hair. She'll never have this hair. I literally got clotheslined in the air, and this clown has to turn it into race. Her level of IQ needs to be studied for generations. But anyways, it was an easy dub for us.
The moment Sophie Cunningham went down, the game stopped feeling like a normal basketball game and started looking like the latest chapter in a rivalry that refuses to stay on the court. DJ Carrington had already been playing with the kind of intensity that makes every possession feel personal, but the collision with Cunningham pushed everything over the edge.
The WNBA is the gift that keeps on giving. The latest is a clothesline foul on Sophie Cunningham by Dejanay Carrington, the woman that went on an incredibly racist rant against cab driver, and of course knocked the hell out of Caitlin Clark from behind her rookie year. But that's okay. I'm not mad at that kind of basketball. That's all good. But the problem is after. It was white privilege. White girl goes to the basket. African-American woman knocks her on her ass, clothesline her, knocks her down, upgraded to a flagrant 2.
The contact was reviewed. The officials upgraded it to a flagrant 2, and Carrington was ejected. And that should have been the end of the drama, right? Absolutely not, because Carrington didn't simply disappear into the locker room and let the controversy cool down.
What's gonna happen? Sophie is not Caitlin Clark. Sophie is from the show me. She want all the smoke. Sophie say, pull up. She's ready for battle. And that's exactly what she said, man, in so many words. So if you guys don't know, Dejanay Carrington was ejected from the game for literally giving Sophie Cunningham a clothesline from hell. She hit her with the Undertaker signature move. She down her flipped up and down.
From the locker room, she posted a message that immediately poured gasoline onto an already burning internet. Within minutes, fans were dissecting every word, arguing over what she meant, and turning the incident into something much bigger than one foul.
This ghetto thug, Dejanay Carrington on your screen, she cannot play another WNBA game ever again. This ghetto thug you see on your screen, Dejanay Carrington, posted white privilege and tagged D&D and the Fever after she got ejected after raking Sophie Cunningham across the head. When you can literally injure yourself and get injured in multiple ways, Dejanay Carrington raked Sophie Cunningham across the head. It got reviewed by the officials. They ended up and deemed it as a flagrant foul too and ejected her from the game.
Then came the reactions. Some fans were furious. Others were practically celebrating the confrontation, applauding Carrington and treating the moment like some kind of victory over Cunningham. And that reaction exposed something much bigger about the WNBA right now. There is a section of the fan base that has become completely invested in seeing certain players clash, especially when Sophie Cunningham or Caitlin Clark is involved. But that is where this story gets uncomfortable. That is why Carrington's latest incident has hit such a nerve. Fans aren't simply arguing about whether the foul deserved an ejection. They're asking whether the league has reached the point where repeated controversy surrounding physical play needs a much stronger response. Some are even calling for Carrington to face a suspension far beyond a single game, with the most extreme reactions, demanding that she be removed from the league altogether.
Dejanay needs to be suspended, and not for the foul. I don't believe Dejanay Carrington's foul was suspension worthy. I think it was flagrant 2 worthy. Obviously flagrant 2 worthy. Based on the WNBA's really like relaxed rules on suspensions. It isn't a suspension if it's in the NBA. Duh. Obviously, it's a suspension if it's in the NBA. But like, I'm sorry. In the WNBA, it is like, that's flagrant 2. The fact they called it a flagrant 2 is shocking.
Social media. The conversation becomes less about basketball and more about whether the WNBA is doing enough to protect its biggest personalities. And that is the real storm Carrington may now find herself standing in the middle of, because the foul lasted seconds, the controversy could last all season. And that is exactly where the story gets even more complicated, because while everyone was arguing about Carrington's ejection, another piece of the game suddenly became a major talking point: Caitlin Clark's technical foul. For a moment, it looked like Indiana might fouled SO now. Instead of one controversy, there were 2 completely different disciplinary conversations happening around the same game, and that contrast is important because Carrington's foul was reviewed on the court and upgraded to a flagrant 2, which automatically sent her to the locker room. The officials determined that the contact met the league's threshold for an excessive foul, while Fever coach Stephanie White later said she did not believe Carrington intentionally went for Cunningham's neck.
To be honest, I don't watch this garbage league, but I had to get in on the action after seeing that ejection. So I went all in on Kalshi for Indiana to win this game. I had some sweat coming out my cheeks at the end there. Don't make it that close again, buddy, or else I'm calling Enos Kanter to show you what's good. Thank you.
That's fine. I wouldn't watch this circus either. Literally, the only exciting thing about this league are the cat fights. Because we all know a middle school boys team can destroy any team in this league, especially when we got players who can't make wide open layups like Sid the Sloth. It truly is an embarrassment.
That detail matters because the internet had already decided what happened. Online, people weren't debating whether the play was physical, they were debating intent, punishment, history, and whether the WNBA has a bigger problem on its hands than Carrington's argument, and predictably the reactions were all over the place. Some fans defended Carrington and argued that she had a reason for making the post, while others were completely baffled, asking how the incident could be interpreted as racial bias when the officials had reviewed the play and issued a flagrant 2. Then Sophie Cunningham was asked about it, and Cunningham's response was noticeably calmer than the internet's. She said she believed the foul was unnecessary and characterized it as intentional, but she also pointed out something that immediately became ammunition for both sides of the debate. She had previously been ejected for a similar foul and believed she deserved that ejection too. In other words, Cunningham wasn't exactly standing there asking the league to launch World War III. She basically said, "You hit me, the officials made their decision, let's move on." And somehow, that may have made the whole thing even more interesting.
Carrington's foul was upgraded to a flagrant 2 on Sophie Cunningham. She was ultimately ejected from the game against the Indiana Fever. Then she takes her to the locker room, and the first thing she does is run to Twitter and say, "White privilege." Where's the white privilege in this? Are you serious? Oh no, you lucky she ain't just knock your ass out. But I will tell you this, you can definitely expect a multiple game suspension from the WNBA. It's the Witted Wire.
Cunningham wasn't trying to turn the moment into a revenge movie. She wasn't calling for Carrington to be banned, and she wasn't demanding some dramatic league-wide punishment. She was essentially saying that the officials handled it, and that put the pressure back where it belonged on the WNBA, and now the league has to decide what happens next. Will Carrington receive an additional suspension? Will the league determine that the flagrant 2 and ejection were enough? Or will the social media controversy become part of the disciplinary conversation? Those are the questions fans are waiting to see answered. But here's where the story gets bigger than Carrington and Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham has become one of those players who seems to attract controversy everywhere she goes. Partly because she does not exactly play like someone trying to avoid attention. She has openly put Caitlin Clark on the same team and put a nationally watched Indiana Fever game in the middle of it, and suddenly every hard foul becomes a potential headline. That is the environment the WNBA is operating in right now. Every incident gets replayed, every reaction gets clipped, and every social media post gets analyzed like it was evidence in a courtroom.
Matt White, bonehead. The lady has no idea what she's doing. She's in over her head. She's way over her head when it comes to this job. She needs to go back to being head coaches of teams that nobody really gives a damn about. And it's that simple. Take a listen to Stephanie White defending DeJounte Carrington. This is disgusting. If I'm Sophie Cunningham, I'm pissed. My mouth.
When a player gets ejected, the argument doesn't end when the player walks into the tunnel. That's when the second game begins, which is the social media game, and Carrington's post guaranteed that the second game was going to be intense. Because fans didn't just see Flagrant 2, they saw two competing narratives. One side saw a hard foul that crossed the line and deserved punishment, while the other side saw a player who believed the decision reflected something deeper. Then there was a third group that seemed less interested in either explanation and simply wanted maximum chaos. And those were the fans celebrating the confrontation. This is where things get uncomfortable. There were people online applauding Carrington for the hit and treating Cunningham like she had somehow lost the encounter. The first reporting said magnified the attention, but so Sophie Cunningham has developed her own reputation as someone who isn't afraid of confrontation. When Carrington and Cunningham collided, it wasn't just another foul to the people watching. It became a symbol. For some, it represented what they believe is excessive physicality around the Fever. For others, it represented Carrington refusing to back down. And for everyone else, it was the latest WNBA controversy to dominate the timeline.
He hit her across the court, bruh. But Sophie Cunningham then turned around and say, "Hold up, what you do that for, you stupid?" See, I would say it, but y'all know I can't say the rest because YouTube be on some, But with all of that being said, we have to look at DeJounte Carrington as what she is, and she is a criminal. She needs to be put out of the league now. There needs to be no suspension. She needs to be banned from all WNBA action.
But there is another reason this incident has people looking backward. Carrington has been involved in previous controversies with Clark, including the widely discussed 2024 incident in which she made contact around Clark's eye during a game. That history means every new incident involving Carrington and an Indiana player is going to be viewed through a much larger lens. And that creates a problem, because once a player develops a controversial history, every future incident gets judged not only on what happened today, but on everything that happened before it. That's exactly what we're seeing now. People aren't simply watching the Cunningham foul, they're bringing up old clips, previous confrontations, Clark, the Fever, social media posts, and the league's disciplinary record. Suddenly, one basketball play has fast break fouls happen and emotions boil over. That's basketball. The problem begins when the contact is viewed as excessive, especially when the player does not make a legitimate play on the ball. That's why the officials reviewed Carrington's foul and upgraded it. And that's why the league now has to decide whether the incident deserves anything beyond what happened during the game.
Consequences for her own actions like a grown adult woman could. She did what a ghetto thug would do and played victim. It's never my fault. It is your fault. Once again, DeJounte Carrington, she might actually have a mental illness. She's a loose screw at this point. She's a loose screw. You can't have her around a professional environment. You don't know what she's gonna do or what she's going to say. She's been on platforms going down to Alyssa Smith, her former partner, just airing out business, unprofessional. It appears she is
Meanwhile, Cunningham walked away from the controversy with something that almost nobody expected. She looked remarkably unfazed. She made her position clear, said the contact was unnecessary, and then kept moving. That may actually be the most Sophie Cunningham thing imaginable, because while the internet was fighting a civil war over her name, she was basically saying, I can handle it. And that brings us back to the strange reality of the WNBA in 2026. The league has never had more attention, but with that attention comes something else. Every argument becomes bigger. Every confrontation becomes more viral, and every player from Sophie. And not from Caitlyn, but from the league, because the real question isn't whether fans think Carrington should be banned forever. Fans can demand anything. The real question is what the WNBA decides the appropriate punishment should be after reviewing the incident and everything surrounding it. And whatever that decision is, you already know what happens next. Point one side will say the league went too far. The other will say it didn't go far enough. Someone will dig up an old clip, someone will post another screenshot, and someone will turn the whole thing into a 3-hour argument.
Call a flagrant one. But like, it's clearly so obviously a flagrant 2. Like, she makes no attempt at going for the ball here. She's not even close to the ball. And even if she gets the ball, she closes her elbow and drags her down by the head. She clotheslines her by the head. It is so obviously, it is, even if it's like, it looks so obviously intentional. Even if it's not intentional, it is so reckless that it's a flagrant 2. Doesn't matter.
And
Somehow, by tomorrow morning, a basketball game that ended 90-86 will be remembered less for the score than for one collision that sent the entire WNBA internet into meltdown. Because in this league right now, the final buzzer doesn't necessarily end the game. Sometimes that's when the real drama begins. And just when it looked like the controversy might finally cool down, another question started taking over the conversation. What exactly should the WNBA do next? Because an ejection handles the immediate moment, but it doesn't necessarily settle the larger issue. But here's the problem with that argument. A fan's punishment and an actual league punishment are two completely different things. The WNBA has to judge the play, the circumstances, the player's history, and the applicable rules. The first timing that Ntenga jumped of the awesome Temple Weedle bat and honor rest kicking. Every time Caitlin Clark is involved, the microscope gets bigger, and every time Sophie Cunningham gets involved, the temperature rises. When you combine both with a controversial ejection, you've just created the perfect recipe for another WNBA internet explosion. But Cunningham's response is worth remembering. Instead of escalating the situation, she essentially said she believed the league would handle it. She made her feelings about the foul clear, but she didn't turn the post-game interview into a courtroom drama.
Why wouldn't you subscribe? Already knowing the regimen and the requirement, make sure that you tap into the With It Wire on all social media platforms. But let's get into this real quick. So I'm watching the game, Sophie Cunningham going on a fast break. And again, Dejanay Carrington, you're not going for the ball. You literally went straight for her cranium. So I don't know why you sitting here screaming white privilege after that. Don't deflect from the malicious, the blatant, and overly aggressive foul that you just created. That again, if the WNBA does not suspend you for multiple games.
That distinction matters because there is a difference between saying that was unnecessary and I believe it was intentional and demanding that someone's career be destroyed. Fans can be furious, players can be emotional, and commentators can debate it for hours, but ultimately, the league has to make the decision, and now Carrington has to live with whatever comes next, because the moment you get ejected in a nationally watched game, the footage doesn't disappear. It gets replayed from 20 different angles. Slow motion makes every movement look 10 times more dramatic. Social media adds captions, fans add theories, and suddenly one moment becomes the defining image of an entire night. That's the modern WNBA. The basketball happens on the court, the trial happens online, and the verdict changes everything.